I know that some in our audience know the finer points of hockey.
The Chris Johnston Show.
We are your friends.
The biggest stories, bringing you inside the game.
What did you hear?
The Chris Johnston Show. Powered by Sports Interaction. Wanna bet? What is going on?
Here's Chris with your host, Julian McKenzie.
So you're back in Florida. No sunglasses this time, but you have the suit. I noticed the shirt unbuttoned at the top. Is this fair to call you Miami Vice CJ? Is that a good nickname? I like that nickname.
Absolutely. I'll take that one. And you can be sure there'll be no tie. I'm not spoiling this look with a tie today. This is just how it is. Nice and relaxed. Went for a run this morning. Is honestly, I think it was 27 degrees at 8 a.m. So needless to say, the NHL, if you're following the IGs of players or media people or what have you, you're going to see a lot of Fort Lauderdale beach pics because it's gorgeous down here.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing you getting your groove on at some of these parties. That's going to be the fun thing at the All-Star weekend, right?
I don't know. I'm not planning to party, if I'm being honest. I'm planning on being. I was in bed last night at 9. So we'll see. I'm planning to have a low key All-Star, but nice to see everyone. Have a couple of Margos or something, but nothing. I told you it's for the young ones. It's like old CJ, 2009 All-Star in Montreal. I don't even know. There wasn't a last call I didn't find, but you get older, and I'm not chasing that so much anymore.
Sometimes I feel like you're the oldest 40-year-old man I know. You're not that old.
I know, but you gotta know yourself, man. Plus, I want to do a good job. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that I didn't want to do a good job back then, but sometimes the priorities, you're excited, you're in all these places for the first time. Like, it's a little different when you've been through it as many times as I have.
So, like, in terms of like the weekend itself, I know there's a whole bunch of stuff we want to get to. Sports Interaction is going to come up. We're going to talk about Horvat. We're going to talk other trade stuff. The NHLPA exec director search. I have a question for you about a tweet, actually 2 tweets that have gone around the last few days. But I want to get as much as I can out of you with the All-Star stuff. Like, considering you've been to all of these, like not all of these, but you've been to a bunch of these. Like what do you look forward to the most when you go to these events, knowing that you've seen like as much as you can out of these?
Well, for me, the coolest part is just everyone's relaxed, right? Like, we're in the middle of the season. And if you went into an NHL dressing room, 6 days ago, it's very businesslike. But then you get here and it's all the top players in the league, or at least a good chunk of them, some of their agents, their families, team personnel, and everyone's just chilled out. Like, it's really nice to kind of have this time in the middle of the season to take a break and be relaxed around each other. And so it's usually really a tremendous vibe. I think you put times 10 on that when you're somewhere like South Florida in February, because everyone's, appreciating the nice weather. And, one thing I've actually heard, Julian, is that a whole bunch of NHL players that aren't part of All-Star Weekend are actually down here, because of the All-Star festivities. That's not to say that I'll be seeing those people that don't have official duties with the NHL this weekend, but it sounds like this is a very player-friendly locale to have this. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun for everyone who's here. And so I think that's all it is for me. It's not like one event, one skill. Obviously we've been over about the game itself tends to be quite forgettable. Like that's not so much what I'm looking for. I think it's just more the feeling of being here and have a chance to have a few casual conversations and, basically take this deep breath before we go crazy with the run up to the trade deadline and then the run up to the playoffs and then the run to the Stanley Cup final, then draft and free agency. I mean, the next bit of the year on the other side of the break goes fast and it's intense. But the intensity's dialed down a few notches right now for Miami Vice CJ.
Yes, Miami Vice CJ. I love that that's sticking.
Should I undo one more button?
Oh,
is that a little too much?
Did I get it? I don't know about you, y'all, but I feel like it got a little hot in here. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Are you like chasing like features? Or are you trying to get sources? A mixture of both?
Mixture of both. I mean, obviously, some of the players that are here will be some of the guys we're talking about. Maybe, like Vladimir Tarasenko is representing the St. Louis Blues, for example. So, try to connect with people. I actually remember last year's All-Star in Vegas, Claude Giroux was quite front and center because at that point in time, his tenure with the Philadelphia Flyers was winding down. So there's still newsy angles to pursue. And then, of course, and I think we'll get into it, the NHLPA is having an executive board meeting here on Thursday afternoon. So, there's news to be sort of chased down there. So that's more my goal here. I think a lot of my colleagues will turn out some nice features. But I'm a news guy for the most part. I like doing features, don't get me wrong, but it's not really my role at this point in time. So I'm always chasing those nuggets and trying to tell you what's up.
Hey, look, I'm all about you telling me what's up, man, especially when it comes to NHL news. One other thing I forgot to mention that we have to get to. We have to give away another one of those $100 Beertown gift cards, Siege. Like we have this last one.
So after our last episode, remember I was talking about Beertown?
Yeah.
I got a couple texts from people that don't even live in Toronto that work for NHL teams or the like that have been through Toronto, and they were plus oneing my love for Beertown. So that comes from the heart, and I'm telling you, it's a very hockey friendly, NHL friendly kind of venue too. So it's been nice to have some of our listeners, get a little merch and some free beverages from Beertown.
So the last trivia question, I believe, was what's Sunglasses CJ's catchphrase? That's ridiculous. And the winner is Kevin S, who's optimal_hunter on Twitter. By the way, the tweet he put up is, I've had some ridic nights at the Cambridge Beer Town. That's ridiculous. My answer. So he even plugs the Beer Town in Cambridge. So congratulations to Kevin S. You are the winner of the third gift card that we have. And the fourth one,
do we know? Can he use that gift card at the Cambridge Beer Town? Like, is it good at all of them? Or
he should be able to, because
we don't even know.
It's in Ontario, so he should be able to.
Okay.
And the last one that we're going to give away today. This is the trivia question for us.
Oh, we got producer Drew weighing in from the sidelines. Yes, he can.
Wait. Yes. I figured it was the case.
Producer Nick's on assignment right now. He's taking this show off. So we got producer Drew pinch hitting.
Shout out producer Drew, aka Drewski, tapping in for us when Nick, the slacker that he is, he's not a slacker. He's also in Florida. Have you seen Nick since you got in?
No, but I'm gonna endeavor to see him. But I think he's been pretty busy.
I can imagine that, but also
evidently he's too busy to do the show this morning. So
show. Seriously. But also, like, holy crap, like producer Drew, like he does the LFRs for Steve. Like this is legendary presence we got going on over here. That's pretty nice.
Are you fanboying?
A little bit. A little bit. That's okay. But yeah, the trivia question. And I guess if
this one might be hard.
You think it's hard?
I don't know how much I've talked about it. Like, I've definitely talked about it, but
you've mentioned it. You've mentioned it. My biggest worry was that
this is a deep cut. I think this is a CJ deep cut.
Yeah, but this has to be like, it can't be that easy. But the only way it's hard is if like you've worked at another one, and I don't think you've worked at another one. The question is, what fast food restaurant has CJ worked at? We've mentioned it before. The real ones know that the real ones know. The real ones know you've worked for insert fast food joint here.
I'll give you a hint, but it's not really going to be a hint, but it's kind of random. To work at said fast food joint, you only need to remember 3 colors in a specific order: white, red, green. Mayonnaise, ketchup, pickles, onions, tomato, lettuce. That's the order you dress the burgers with.
Oh, okay. All right. You still remember that. What's the last time you were at that place?
Like eating?
No, or I mean,
I haven't the one I worked at, I haven't physically been in since I left, which was I think 1999, 2000. 20 odd years anyway. And I don't even remember the last time I've eaten from this particular. I don't really eat at a lot of burger joints, let's be honest. So, but I haven't eaten there in 10 years probably.
You don't eat a lot of burgers. So like when you go out west, you're not an In-N-Out guy. Out east, you're not a Shake Shack guy.
Like here and there, but no, it's not a big thing for me. But don't get me wrong, if I'm at a restaurant, I'll have a burger. Like I try to avoid straight up fast food, unless it's pizza. Then that's my Achilles heel.
Yeah, we still need that sponsorship with Pizza. You still have those good cards?
Oh no, those were spent. Those are spent.
Okay, so please tweet at my Twitter account, JK McKenzie, tweet at reporter Chris, tweet at SDPN Sports, the name of the fast food restaurant CJ worked at when he was a young lad. We've mentioned it a few times on the show.
Former employee of the month. I mean, I don't want to brag, but
Seriously. Like, come on. Like, we're dealing with greatness over here, guys.
I also got in shit once because I ate a candy cane while I was like, it was like Christmas time, and there was like a little candy canes we were giving out, and I ate one like while I was on the job, and I got written up for it. So
no way. No
like
way.
16-year-old CJ getting called into the principal's office because he ate a candy cane and got caught.
In a damn candy cane. Damn. You can't be eating on the job like that.
Well, I didn't grab a burger off the grill. Anyway, I'm just saying it was like a little. It wasn't like I wasn't like sucking. Like it was like one of those little ones. You just anyway.
Okay, before we
it was
let
a
the
mistake.
show,
I'm just owning up to my mistake here, Julian.
yeah. To those who worked at that so-called restaurant in 1999, CJ wants to let you all know he's sorry.
I'm still friends with some of those people.
Oh, that's nice. That's cool.
Oh, we were a crew.
Oh, I wanna know more. Like, I think if we ever do the live show in Coburg, like you should like invite them out and like we get like stories. Okay. Before we get to sports interaction, there is I did mention there were two tweets I was very intrigued about over the last 2 days. Here's one of the two tweets. There's one tweet, I forget the name of the handle, where they're saying what moment pre-Twitter, so like pre-2006, they're specifying sports moments really, do you think would have blown up on social media if it happened now? And I was trying to wonder, like, what hockey moment pre-Twitter do you think, like, if we saw that play out, like, we'd all be on Twitter being like, holy crap, that happened.
Like
That wasn't
like
was
something
amazing.
on the ice or like
Something.
an off ice, like a transaction. Like I'm thinking of like Wayne Gretzky getting traded in his prime. Like if that had happened in real time, hockey Twitter would have melted.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That could count. Because I say, like, if we're just using every single sporting moment, like I always think that the Malice at the Palace incident where the Detroit Pistons and the Indiana Pacers had that fight in the crowd, everyone would have lost their minds for sure. Absolutely. Also,
I mean,
the
there's
OJ
been some
Simpson
there's
chase.
been some pretty violent things that happened in NHL history, right? Like the Todd Bertuzzi incident in Vancouver. I mean, something like that probably would have, like there was like guys were like getting sticks swung at their heads like baseball bats at times. Like stuff like that would have went bananas, I think.
Absolutely, it would have. Also, like the Todd Bertuzzi Steve Moore incident. With the way Vancouver Twitter is now, there would be blood, like everywhere.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I don't want to. I almost want to go unearth all those violent moments in the past, because the truth is we don't have nearly that level of calamity now.
No.
Those are like literally like you come away from that kind of incident, you're like, is this person suspended for an entire season? Like that's like a part of the conversation. Like, we don't have those today. We're debating between 2 and 3 games or something. You know what I mean? Like half the time, like it's when you take a long view of history, the game has really evolved and changed. It's not nearly so bad, but we still get lost in the moment sometimes.
Chris Simon would be public enemy number 1 on hockey Twitter today.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, those are the ones that make me think of like some of the most surprising things. It's hard to remember before Twitter, honestly. Like it's hard to actually
like, how did we
like I was trying to think, like when the Leafs blew that Game 7 lead to Boston, I guess Twitter did exist then. Like so it probably went crazy. I don't really remember it. Like I remember the game, I was there covering it, but I don't remember what Twitter was doing at that time. But
I remember tweeting during that game.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. Anyway.
Did Steve Dangle tweet during that game?
I'm sure he did. I would imagine he would have.
We should unearth those tweets. It's going to be hard, but we should unearth whatever he was tweeting that day.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll bring in David Bastel, and then I think in that little, like, during the ad break or something, I'll try to like find a tweet or two from that time. How's that?
Sounds great, Brad.
All right. It's time for You Can Bet That. Welcome to You Can Bet That with David Bastel. David, thank you so much for joining us on the fine program that we have here.
Good to be here, guys.
Remember to hit up sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all of your gaming needs. Very interesting goal prop on the rundown today. I have to wonder if your Winnipeg Jets influence has something to do with this. Mark Scheifele, yes or no, to a 50-goal prop that's up at the Sports Interaction website right now. Why do I feel like you're leaning towards a yes for this?
You know what I am? I'm sure crossing my fingers that I am. He's actually come out of the gates firing. So right now he's tied for 8th, as you guys know, 31 goals. So he's 19 away. The Jets have 30 games even left. So CJ, it's a pretty good pace that he has to keep. I'm betting yes, just because it's Mark Scheifele. I mean, the odds say no, this does not happen, just because it's hard scoring 20 goals or 19 goals in 30 games. That's you can't really miss on these kind of situations, but it would be the first 50 goal score for the Jets organization since Keith Tkachuk did it, which was back in the 90s.
Oh, I was good. I was thinking it might have been Solane's big year, that it might have been the last 50 goal season. That was 76 goals, was it?
That's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Just before that. Yeah.
I get why you're hitting yes here. I mean, you're watching every game and cheering for Scheifele, so you might as well have a little juice on that. But it's going to be tough. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy, and there's not much room for a cold spell. But you know, look at this tier. It looks like we could have 6, 7, 8 50-goal scorers, and if we get that number, obviously Scheifele's he's going to be right on the line. It probably goes right down to the last game or two of the season.
Yep.
I always love the level of analysis that comes on these different lines and picks, and I can't wait for the level of analysis that'll come for this next one. What's the first song Rihanna will perform at the Super Bowl? The betting favorite right now is Diamonds at 3.20, and Don't Stop the Music, which has been on all over the TSN commercials ahead of the Super Bowl, at 3.50. DB, what do you think will be the first song played by Rihanna at this year's Super Bowl?
Thanks, Julian. No, you know what? It's funny you say that, because it's in my head that, please don't stop the music, right? And I'm like, so does she purposely go somewhere else with it? You know what I mean? Like I like Rihanna. I think she's a great singer. I can't sit there and name off the songs like my kids can. But you know what? The betting favorite is Diamonds, followed by Please Don't Stop the Music. We found Love is in there at about 4.5 to 1, Lift Me Up at about 5 to 1. And then there's a couple major long shots, but I don't know about you, CJ, but I don't have a gut feeling on this one, but I'll definitely be watching it.
Oh man. I mean, the fans of the pod will know, like, I'm so terrible with this sort of stuff. I couldn't name one Rihanna song. Like, now, if one played, I've heard them all, of course, because she's omnipresent, but I'm not following it closely. I'll go with Diamonds. I'm going the betting line favorite, because whoever set that line must have some inside info, because I have no clue on this one.
I'm actually intrigued at the long shot in all of this at 17, which I'm only saying the title here, folks. Bitch better have my money. How was it only at 17 as a long shot as the first song performed?
17 to 1. Yeah.
Wow. Maybe Rihanna, I don't know. Maybe they don't want to piss off the NFL. I can't tell you that, but I can tell you to not forget to check out sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all the best odds before game, in game, and the best props. Again, sportsinteraction.com/SDPN.
And I should tell you guys, most of our Super Bowl props have been rolled out. We'll be adding throughout the week, but there's tons of player props, pinata picks, coin toss, Gatorade, national anthem. It's there, but it keeps on building every single day. So have a look when you get a chance. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Orange Gatorade. I'm feeling the orange Gatorade.
Yes, that has to be the favorite. sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Thank you, DB. This show is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I take AG1 very seriously, and I take it every day. I wanted to try it because I wanted better gut health, sustained energy, better immune system. I was getting really fed up of taking pills and vitamins every single day. Like, geez, it's just too much sometimes. So having AG1, have it in the bottle, put yourself some water in there, add one of the supplements in there, maybe a little bit of juice if you want to. Tastes pretty nice, tastes really great, and you get yourself some energy, again, better immune system, better gut health, and it just has you feeling unstoppable throughout the day. So I'm really happy to talk to you guys about AG1 and all the different cool stuff that's in there. 75 high quality ingredients that give me key daily nutrients and long-term gut health support. So check it out. If you want Athletic Greens, they're going to give you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your very first purchase. All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/Johnston. athleticgreens.com/Johnston to check it out. Shout out producer Drew for doing the Lord's work and actually finding. I know I said I was going to do it, but producer Drew did this. So thank you, Drewski, for finding tweets around the time Game 7 of the 2013 debacle that was Leafs Bruins. I think on May 13th, there's one tweet here. Bruins fan walked by to the boos of literally thousands with a "please don't kill me" sign. There's another one. Leafs win. I guess
this is all Steve Dangle's tweets.
Yeah, these are all Steve Dangle's tweets. Leafs win. Now who has a spare pair of underpants? Literally like that. And then the next day is "I'm pooping my pants." #Leafs. There's one that's just emotions and then just all these different emoticons. I have no idea. There's one tweet where it's by the way, Kessel is a fat coward 90% of the time. And then Dangle says, amazing sex machine. What the hell is this?
It was a different time in Steve's life. This is pre-kids.
Okay. I feel like, yes.
He might have still been living with his parents at this point, which I'm not saying as a shot, but this was a much younger Steve.
Yeah. I remember watching the LFR he did for Game 7, and the intro is just him yelling the F word, and you see his beard is shaved off. So he still had the old blue room. So I think he was still in his parents' place.
That's awesome. Twitter is like a time capsule. As long as you don't go and cleanse the timeline.
Yeah.
You can go back and be like, what was Julian doing in 2011 or whatever, whenever you joined?
Jeez. Yeah. I don't know if I want people unearthing all of my old tweets. But
I remember when Twitter started, I didn't know what to tweet, which sounds weird, but I didn't know there wasn't really there wasn't really a community then. So it wasn't so much a conversation. So you just felt like you were launching these thoughts into a void. And anyway, it's so funny how it's evolved. I mean, now I just try not to tweet too much, basically. Never tweet. Or else you get dragged by an NHL player.
Yeah, and you end up being a trending topic in Canada, as Steve Dangle is, as a result of a back and forth with Brad Marchand, which was very, very interesting to see. I don't know if we want to talk about that as a topic, but that was very interesting to see.
I will say broadly, I like that Brad Marchand mixes it up. I actually think it's kind of cool. I'm not saying I agree with everything he might say or his points or whatever, but at least he's out there. He just shoots from the hip. He engages with fans and media people. To me, I like that. I'm just thinking. I try to think of what young CJ would have thought. You had nowhere near that level of access to players, right, in the league. They just felt so far away that your best hope is you'd see one on the street and get an autograph or something. But I love that you have a current day star player who's just taking shots, posting the Dangle growl picture. I think it's hilarious. And, I haven't talked to Steve about it. I'm going to guess Steve thinks it's funny too. It's fun. It's all fun and games.
I think that, I think that in a vacuum, you could easily think okay, that's fun. The one thing I dread is everyone else who kind of piles on top of that. And instead of seeing it for the joke that it, or the humor that it is, they just turn around. They're like, "Oh, screw you! You're a Leafs fan. You're an idiot who just yells." And I guess that's more in Steve's case, but that's the danger of fandom, right? If you're blindly following somebody, you're just going to start spewing a whole bunch of crap at somebody who you don't even know. That's the other side of it.
I just don't think it's that personal. I think everyone's doing it sort of tongue in cheek. Steve had a pretty good comeback. I thought you'd be used to being the third man. I think it's okay. It's there's a little bit of edge, but I think it's harmless. And honestly, I would take many more personalities like Brad Marchand's in the league. I think it's good.
Well, just
because he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't care at all. He doesn't care.
He's got
like
no F's to give there, brother.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. And the league does need that to a certain extent too. Like they need like a chaotic neutral persona who can do his shit on the ice, can score goals, and be a top level and is a top level player in this league. And okay, he mixes it up on Twitter. I mean, we look at the NBA and the NFL, they have shit like that all the time. The NHL, it's like so far in between personas like that. So if he does want to be that guy, okay.
I mean, what was the headline this week? Viewership on NHL games down 20% or something in the US.
And that is the second tweet I wanted to get to.
There you go. Well, but here's the thing though. Like it's clearly a digital world now. We're moving more and more towards that. I think you want players. I mean, so much of what's going to happen here at the All-Star game will be things that meant to like go a little bit viral online, right? It's going to be the players doing whatever on the beach, or I'm not sure how they're going to incorporate everything, but like so much of it is going to be about engaging fans in a less traditional way, which is actually just becoming the traditional way. And so I think it's great. I want more. I mean, so many players, Julian, like how many guys you hear say this, like, oh, I deleted my Twitter app, or like so many players do have accounts, but just aren't active and certainly aren't, jumping into the scrums, the online scrums and throwing punches like Brad Marchand. So, as I say, I don't see any real downside to it. I haven't seen him go like completely offside. Even the shut your pie hole, Craig. Like I don't really know what that was about. It was like a little edgy.
I'd like to know what that was about, though, or maybe he just really didn't care. It's just like whatever. You're a nerd.
Think he's just, yeah. I think there's a danger almost of reading too much into it. Like you can overthink it. Like he probably just saw it. He's like, oh, is this nerdy reporter trying to, And I'm not calling Craig Morgan a nerdy reporter. I realize we're all nerdy reporters, basically, to the players, and especially us olds like Craig Morgan and I that have been around a long time.
All right. Well, as long as Brad doesn't fly too close to the sun, I guess, because I don't know. I mean, it hasn't happened to you yet, but if that happens to you, for example, like, what are we going to do then?
What do you mean? If he comes at me?
Yeah. Like, what if that happens?
I could take it. I can take it.
Okay. I think I could take it too. It's just, I guess it depends on what he decides to stand for. But at that point, I feel like it's me going up against an NHL player. I'm not winning that fight.
Yeah, and I'm not the kind of tweeter these days. Like I'm not on there criticizing a mistake in a game, or I'm just trying to give information for the most part. There's some opinion in there. I got in there. Wrexham got me excited last weekend. I tweeted about Wrexham, so I do occasionally put a little personality and opinion out there. But
that's not opinion. That's personality.
Right, but I'm just saying, for the most part, I'm just trying to share the news, because I think that's why if you follow me, you're probably following me for that more than the personality stuff.
Also, by the way, I did notice you put the sunglasses on.
It just felt right. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I get back in the sun.
Yeah.
If I pulled this curtain open, like it is bright. I would be backlit. It would not be good for the purposes of what we're doing here. But it's nice outside. I can't wait till we're done. No offense, because I want to go out there and enjoy that heat.
Okay. Let's try to run through these topics. Since we did mention that tweet going around about how US TV viewership is down in the National Hockey League, down 22%. It was at an average of 478,000 viewers last season. It's down to 373,000. So many people had a myriad of opinions why. Personalities not being marketed, or lack of personalities just to begin with. The officiating sucks. Playoff format. Like so many different reasons. Like they're not able to get casual fans. What did you think of that tweet? Do you agree with it? And what do you think?
Here's the problem. It's like a mirror, right?
Yeah.
Like, so whatever someone thinks is wrong with the league, and they see that headline or that story, and then they just use it to like bang from their platform. Like, what do we really know? Like, what's TV viewership down in general everywhere? Like, is this just part of a wider trend? Obviously people are cable cutting, cord cutting. That's been going on for years, but I think it's not slowing down. We're in a recessionary like period, if we're not in a full on recession. So some people may be making some hard choices about what they're spending their money on. I actually think TNT and ESPN are doing a pretty good job. And I actually think this hockey season's been great. Like the scoring is up again. So I don't have a good hot take here for why this is happening, other than, I'm pretty sure we're all just watching less TV in a traditional way than ever before. So I'd love to like come at you and say, yeah, it's because the officiating, but I don't believe it's that. I think it's more of a wider industry trend than, and I'm sorry, while I'm saying this too, Julian, I'm not saying that NHL can't do some things better either. I'm not saying everything's perfect. Like,
sure,
this is a non-story, but I just don't think, I think this became a bigger thing than it needs to be, because I don't know that this is an NHL only issue. So that's kind of my 2 cents, and I'll be interested to hear what Gary Bettman says this weekend when he speaks. Because what the league is obviously diving into this sort of stuff deep on a regular basis all the time, about its reach, about what it can do better, and so I'll be curious how the league sees it. But I don't think it's the doom and gloom the way that the headline kind of screams, to be honest.
I think I'm on the side, and I forgot to mention this as one reason why maybe some people feel the viewership has gone down. I'm on the side that is asking questions about how easy it is to access games in the States.
Right.
Like Saad Youssef, one of my colleagues at The Athletic, there's a tweet from him. He quote tweets the original tweet from Mark J. Burns, and he's like, well, I'm sure it doesn't help when people have to put the same amount of effort to find their hockey game to watch as they do to climb Mount Everest. Like, if it's that hard, if it's that much harder to watch games on ESPN Plus, or I don't know how it works for NHL on TNT, but if you're making it difficult for them, well, yeah, you're going to have fewer people watching the games, on top of the fact that the personality isn't what you want it to be, or the marketing.
Right, but TNT
is
in particular, don't you think they're doing a great job with personality-driven like segments? Like I've seen so many cool interviews with players, like during the warm-up where I feel like they're actually bringing some personality, and their panel is different. And like, I find it funny. Like, I enjoy it. I see a lot of those clips bounce around my Twitter feed. Obviously, living in Canada, I can't see the broadcast.
I don't see enough of them
all the time. But I actually think that they're bringing personality out of the players. Like, they have like Tage Thompson branded as like he's the player when TNT shows his game, he scores all the goals and stuff. Like, I think that they're like, I like that what they do for the NBA. I think they're doing it. It's not as much volume, but like, I think they're bringing that same personality to the NHL in particular. And I'm not hating on ESPN either. It's just, to me, I actually think that they're trying to do what everyone's criticizing them for. I don't have the answer here, but I'll be honest with that. Like, I don't know why I don't have it. Maybe it's just as simple as what you're saying. Like, it's just hard to find the game. So how do you watch a game if you can't find it?
I agree, because you're right, to your point. Like, that they have the casting characters they have on NHL and TNT. Shout out to Syracuse alum Liam McHugh and the rest of the gang there. Like, they actively are trying to, be personalities. We know Rick Tockett's not on that group anymore, but like,
yeah. But do you see like when Biz and Henrik Lundqvist performed a song for Rick Tocchet?
I actually did. Oh, I saw that going around. Yeah.
Like I don't know. I think they're having fun. Like, yeah, they like, seriously, I think sometimes in Canada we could use a little bit more of that. I know we are supposed to be maybe more stiff upper lip. We take the game seriously, and it's a little bit more almost like religious type experience. But like, I think we could all loosen up a little bit more. That's why I went down one more button.
It's cool you don't have the answer to that question, because I don't think there is. I mean, unless maybe Gary Bettman has the answers. Who knows?
Well, by the way, he's going to have an opinion, and he's going to have a more informed opinion than I will. A more informed one than I do.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think it still brought out some very interesting conversations throughout the week. And feel free to let us know in the comments why you think viewership has gone down in the United States. Okay. Should I do NHLPA exec director search, or should we talk trade? Let's do the NHLPA exec director search, and then we will get to Bo Horvat, and we can get it on the Leafs at some point, because I know you have a notebook of Leaf stuff and you want to empty that. So for those listening, like, stay with us here. There's a very interesting story surrounding who could be the next leader of the NHLPA. One name that has surfaced is Marty Walsh, who is the U.S. Secretary of Labor. He's got his role and has worked in union stuff for a couple of years. But another story that has popped up I forget from what year it dropped, but from when Marty was running for mayor in Boston, the Jacobs family, you may know Jeremy Jacobs, who owns the Boston Bruins, donating to Walsh's campaign when he ran for mayor of Boston. So people are pointing that out and wondering if that's, legit, or if that's cool, or if that's a non-story. Is that a story? It should be a big story. But how do you see it?
Well, the only people that can answer that are the players themselves about how they feel, because basically what's gone on here the last few months is the NHLPA hired a search firm to interview and vet candidates to succeed Don Fehr as the executive director of the union. There was an 8-player search committee that was heavily involved in interviewing candidates. I think they talked to a lot of people with deep ties to the game, player agents and people that kind of know the history more. And it's my understanding it's only been in the last few weeks or maybe a month that Marty Walsh, kind of got on the radar. And I think it was almost like lightning in a bottle. I mean, this is a heavy hitter for the NHLPA to potentially land. And at this point in time, I believe that he is viewed as the number one candidate for the job. But, first of all, he needs the support of at least 18 of 32 teams. Each team is represented by one player on what's called the executive board. And so, the question of does it matter or not that maybe the most powerful owner on the ownership side, Jeremy Jacobs has been the longtime owner of the Bruins, involved in the NHL's executive board at the Board of Governors. Whether the campaign tie there matters or not is the players are going to have to decide. And so obviously there's a lot of discussion about this, but I personally don't have a strong opinion about whether that matters or not. What I look at is, how it's hard to argue that someone like Marty Walsh, coming right out of, the U.S. federal government with deep union ties in his past work before he was into politics, that he couldn't have some ideas for how to push the union forward, to take stock of what's gone on at the NHLPA, obviously, potentially make changes there. But, the players have to decide who's going to lead them. And so that's the process right now. It sounds like they're narrowing in on that because, as I mentioned, I think Walsh has emerged as a top candidate. But, we'll see what news. This might be a little dated depending on when you're listening to our pod. Thursday afternoon, we might get a bit of news in terms of where exactly that process is at. If they decide to have a vote, a membership vote on whether he takes over or not, remains to be seen. But I think it's an interesting story. Maybe not one that gravitates with a lot of fans, but it's big for the industry because 2026 we have another CBA to negotiate, and so who is succeeding Don Fehr will be important. How that person and ultimately his or her leadership team works with the NHL will be something to watch. And then obviously 2026 will be here before you know it, and none of us wants to use that L word or see that L word resurface. So this is an important time for the union, and it does seem as though they have found their next candidate, and not everybody likes it. That's just a fact. But I'm not sure if there's a perfect candidate out there, though, right? I mean, anyone they may hire. Let's say they had went for one of the agents or former executives that have been rumored to be part of this job. There would be people within the industry that have gripes about that too. So you're not going to get unanimous support, I don't think, for anyone.
Which word scares you more, the L word or the J word?
The L word. I've still got panic sleeps. So the 2012-13 lockout, I was working at the Canadian Press still just before I went to Sportsnet, and I covered that thing from start to finish. One of a handful of reporters at the time. Katie Strang was there a lot, Renaud Lavoie, a few others of us. But we literally stood on the street corner outside the NHL office in New York, in August in the heat, and then in December in the freezing cold. I remember we were there. There was a meeting December 30th or 31st. It was we're very close to Times Square, and all the party goers are rushing. It was bananas. And we're standing out on a street hoping that Don Fehr will stop and give us a 60-second clip to file a story off of, or maybe sometimes Gary Bettman would come down and speak to us. But anyway, it was a really cool experience, a unique career experience, but it's not one I hope to ever have again.
Just wait, how many hours would you be waiting for Fehr? Or
sometimes 8-10 hours, seriously.
Just hanging outside? Yeah,
because no offense, I'm not complaining with this, but they're not going to invite us into the meeting.
No,
it's in a private office building, and the NHL's office there, you have to get registered to even just enter the building. So we literally had to stand outside on the street corner because you don't know when the meetings don't go from it's not scheduled from 3 till 6, and then we know at 6:01 we can speak to the person. some of them were long, some of them were short. So we just had to literally stand outside. It was like, we had some fun, don't get me wrong, but it was all in all was not fun. I much would have rather been going to games at that point. And obviously that's what the fans would have wanted and everybody would have wanted. So, it's a pretty stressful, unique experience. And as I say, if I never have to cover another lockout again, I think I'll be good.
Think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet at Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, basketball, or one of the biggest days in sports, Super Bowl 57. Get the action at Sports Interaction. Bet pregame, live and play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/STPN, or in Ontario, download the app using the QR code on your screen. For 19 and over only, please play responsibly. Let's stay in New York and talk about the big Bo Horvat trade that took place this week. He goes from Vancouver to the Islanders. Tito Beauvillier, a prospect, Aatu Ratti, and a first-round pick also going to Vancouver. Hopefully I didn't say Aatu Ratti's name wrong. I've been worried about that all week.
It's Aatu Ratti.
It's Ratu. It's not that weird because there's like a Y. So like it's Ratu. Sorry about that. Aatu Ratti. It's okay. Aatu Ratti, Tito Beauvillier, and a first-round pick going to Vancouver in exchange for Bo Horvat. What did you think of the move?
I mean, I think Vancouver did reasonably well. To me, it's not a trade package that like knocks your socks off, but I'm not sure that's going to be out there. Like, I think that this might signal to us that this is going to be a little bit of a buyer's market. There's some pretty big names available at this trade deadline, big resumes, some star power even, but I'm not sure at the stage that some of those players are at, and just, where we're at in the cycle of the cap and everything going on, that we're going to see massive returns for them all. I think one thing that'll be interesting to measure is if this Timo Meier deal comes down, does the San Jose get a package that we think is better than what Vancouver gets? I think that remains to be seen, but it's possible. I mean, Timo Meier is a player that isn't a pure rental, and maybe he's getting a contract as part of it. Although, I do think ultimately Bo Horvat is probably getting an extension from the Islanders. Certainly that's their intention, what the Islanders want. It's been suggested to me there might be some advantages from New York's end of things not to officially agree to that contract until beyond the trade deadline. I'm not sure 100% if that's the case. So maybe, I'm not saying we're going to get an announcement in right away this second, but perhaps they reach some terms and there's a better time to register the contract and announce it than just this moment. But, I think under the circumstances, it removes, a big bit of speculation, turmoil, chaos for the Canucks. Bo Horvat's been pretty open in his media availabilities about how tough the season was. I think he really wanted to see this end sooner rather than later. And so I think it's nice for everybody involved that they can reach this conclusion now. The Canucks have other business they want to do, other contracts they want to sell. They'll have to figure out what to do with Luke Schenn, up in the lead up to the deadline. So just from a functionality standpoint, it's good to get some business done to focus on other things. And so I think it was a big trade. I don't see it as kicking off this like groundswell of deals. I mean, let's face it, negotiations, there's an art to them, right? You need two parties that are both ready to do the same degree of business at the same time. And I think what we have broadly right now in the trade market, from my understanding and conversations, we have a lot of the sellers they're asking a lot for their, what they're selling because they got a month, right? Like, why not? If you don't ask for a lot, you're never getting a lot. But, the reasonable thing that will happen over time is presumably we get close to the trade deadline, some of those prices come down. I think that's where, the action picks up. Because I know teams have phoned other teams on players, and then, they're calling on like a depth forward who makes whatever, 900,000 against the cap. And that team's saying, I need a second round pick. Well, I mean, reasonably speaking, historically speaking, that's probably not what, it's probably more like a fourth round pick when that deal ends up happening. But we're just not there yet. But what you had here was, I think Vancouver was motivated to move on, do right by Horvat. They got the best package they felt they could get at the time, and just pulled the trigger.
Well, I guess that makes sense, because I wanted to follow up and ask, well, why would they do this now? Considering the fact that, so many teams will probably want to max out as much cap space as they can. and maybe another deal could have come around, or maybe they could have gotten a slightly better package. But when you frame it in the sense that a guy like Bo Horvat, and I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of players on the Vancouver Canucks do not want to continue enduring the season they're going through right now. When you frame it that way, it makes a little bit more sense.
Well, and look, I think there's a misnomer out there that the longer you wait, it's that the price goes up. Like, that's not actually always the case. Sometimes there's an advantage of being the first one in the market. So every team that's looking to buy a forward, and there's a number of them, they haven't spent their draft capital yet. They haven't made any decisions yet. So you're the first one, and you have a pretty attractive piece in Bo Horvat. I can understand someone still might criticize the trade, but this just might be, the market sort of speaks for itself. Like, this just might be the best package that was ever going to be out there for him. And, from a cap perspective, it's actually a cap neutral move because Vancouver retained salary on Horvat and they brought back Beauvillier. And so, I assume because they were looking for roster players instead of just a huge package of picks or what have you, pretty much anyone that was making this deal was trading something like a $4 million player back with some retention to make all the numbers work. And so, I heard that Detroit was certainly in the discussions pretty late. I think Boston at least was around there kicking. They're a team, for example, the Bruins. We've talked about this. Any money they bring in, they're going to have to ship us, equivalent kind of value out. And so, I think that the market was the market, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to have made this move now. Because look, if you're trying to still trade Brock Besser or Connor Garland and Luke Shen and whoever else, that it sounds like Vancouver is willing to trade most things that aren't named Pedersen or Hughes and aren't already strapped down. You can't have like 6 simultaneous discussions on all those players and expect to get business done. So I actually don't mind the move, and I think it's a reasonable return. The draft pick is what's going to tilt this, in my opinion. Well, two things.
The protected first round pick.
Let's see what the dollar figure is on Bo Horvat. Does it end up being an 8-year deal at $8.5 million? Is it $8 million? Is it $9 million? I mean, we know he's not getting more than Matt Barzal, and Barzal's at $9 million. Well, I should say, if he signs in Long Island, I can't imagine they're going to give him more than that Barzal deal. I think there's a ceiling there in terms of their team structure. But where that contract comes in, and then what happens with the first rounder? Does it end up being an unprotected 2024 first rounder, or is it going to be the 18th overall pick this year? I mean, there's a swing there potentially in what this might mean for the Canucks, and that's the little bit of the gamble each side takes. I don't think it's the worst gamble if you're Vancouver to bet on the Islanders maybe still falling off, even with Horvat. I mean, it's fairly old roster. They're tied into a lot of long-term deals. There's not a lot of room to maneuver. They're getting elite goaltending last season and this season and still not in playoff position. And so, this isn't like making a first round. If you're making a deal with Boston, for example, and you're trading a first rounder, I mean, it might end up being the 32nd overall pick. I think there's a scenario where this ends up being like the 8th overall pick in 2024. And that's not a bad deal for the Canucks, but we just have to kind of see what happens here in the next 12 months.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. Lou Lamoriello, just when we thought he was just lying in the weeds, just chilling, he pounces, he strikes, he makes a move. I think it's time for a segment we have not done in a very, very long time. CJ. It's time for Leafs Corner. We don't have any theme music for Leafs Corner, but Leafs Corner is a segment that sometimes happens from time to time when CJ has a lot to talk about when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And everyone makes that assumption that we're a Toronto Maple Leafs podcast. So, CJ, what do we have for today's Leafs Corner?
Well, I don't know if I have a lot to talk about, but I think people are wondering about the deadline, right?
Yes.
And I would just say, I want to frame this correctly, but like one interesting here, let me just start again. I've been of the opinion myself, and I'm sure I've shared it here, but in other places I do my work, that the Leafs are always going to be chasing a high-end forward, or one of the more impactful forwards available at this deadline to solidify their top six. I'm not saying that isn't the case, but I have had someone reasonably close to the team that is not someone in the front office, to be clear, but someone who probably knows what they're thinking to a degree, who has been suggesting to me that he could see them making a more impactful move on their blue line. And so, it's just given me pause because I've kind of been operating on the thought that we're talking, are they going to go try to get Ryan O'Reilly? Are they how interested are they in Timo Meier? Would they potentially pay whatever San Jose is going to need back to make that work? But perhaps we should be focusing a little bit more on the defensemen available, because it sounds to me like they're at least a faction of the decision makers in that organization think that that might be the best place to allocate whatever cap resources they have. So it's more just to reframe the conversation, because I'm not saying they're not in on a forward, but I think that they're considering both. It sounds to me like I don't think that they're locked in on one thing. It's probably the best way to put it. I think that they're looking at, okay, we have X amount of dollars to spend. I actually gave the number on a previous pod, and I was a little light. It's been brought to my attention. I think that they have somewhere a little bit north of $3 million in cap that they can add at the deadline. That's the way it's trending anyways. We'll see what happens. There's maybe some things they can do. I mean, this Austin Matthews injury comes up. He's not out for the rest of the season, so it's not like they can use all his LTI space, but certain things could still happen that change the picture. But based as we're operating right now, they're going to have about $3 million that they can use. And I think that they're surveying the entire market and trying to decide what the best way to use that amount of space is. And so I guess for fans of the team or those that are really anxious to see what their deadline looks like, I would reopen the possibility that it could be a blue line ad that ends up being the most of that space. And let's face it, the truth of the matter is they'll probably add at a couple positions. But let's look at the way things have gone. I mean, they've been using Calle Yarncroke as a second line player for a while now. He's actually been reasonably productive. I think he scored his 12th goal on Wednesday of the season. I think he's fit in quite well in a role there. And so maybe you just double down and you improve that blue line. And so it's I don't know if I'm getting you always wonder as a reporter, are you getting pushed off the scent here or something with this kind of info? But I wanted to share it because, I had a pretty long conversation with someone who I think has a window into what's going on there. And he was telling me that if he was making a bet, so to speak, or if he was, trying to handicap what they're going to do, he thinks they're going to swing bigger on a defenseman than a forward. So
Luke Schenn?
I would think bigger than that, honestly, based on the conversation, someone to play in their top four. At this point in time, they have TJ Brody who plays the right side. Timothy Liljegren has performed quite well. He's sort of their second option as a right shot. They have Justin Hall as a right shot. Luke Schenn's probably a third pairing defenseman, I would think, on the Leafs this day and age. I'm aware that he's playing much higher than that in Vancouver and performing well. So maybe, but I don't have the name for you. But I will say this: if you go to look at any of the trade lists out there, I've got my CJ's big board at North Star Bets. TSN has a trade bait list. Frank Seravalli's got his list at Daily Faceoff. Those lists aren't all the same. We all view the market a little bit different. But what's consistent across all those lists is there's a lot of defensemen out there. And so, I could see them pushing their chips in a little bit deeper there, just based on this conversation anyway. I mean, look, I'll keep sharing here what I hear. We're going to hear more specific info, I think. I mean, there's been talks, was it Jake McCabe or, who it might be, but I could see them, or at least someone I trust could see them going for a defenseman now. So it's forced me to rethink, my own thoughts on their deadline approach, because I was pretty locked in myself on trying to figure out what was the best forward addition they can make. I mean, that might not be where they go.
All right. That concludes Leafs Corner for today. And who knows when the hell we'll get back to that segment.
How are the SDP guys going to take that? What's your read? It seems like they want a forward, or
I think they want a forward. I think they want I in terms of the SDP boys, Tic Tac Tomar, who I talked to on Zone Time, I think they very much want a sexy top forward acquisition. A defenseman makes sense. They've been about, they've probably could use some defense, who knows, but a big forward, a good forward, a scoring forward. I mean, I thought you were going to say the name Ryan O'Reilly at some point.
Well, I mean, he's definitely someone they're monitoring, and I think he's a possibility. But if you're in their current cap situation, even with retention and everything, if you're making a trade for Ryan O'Reilly, I don't know that you can then get also an impactful D. I guess, maybe they're shipping salary out in another deal. Maybe that's how they do it. Maybe they end up doing both, right? And so my thought was right and my sources thought was right. It's possible that's the case, right? but right now it almost looks like it's one or the other in terms of like a bigger addition, just because there's not an endless amount of cap space there unless they're clearing out some. So, it's funny. I think Dangle wants the Leafs to chase a D, so maybe Dangle knows too. I don't know, but it's going to be intriguing. Obviously, I'm just sharing what I'm hearing too. I mean, I know that fans, I don't expect the Leafs to be making a move anytime. Like, I think that they will maximize the space. They'll see how the market develops. They have an ability to be patient, right? They're locked in. They're either finishing second or third in the Atlantic Division, more than likely, unless something crazy happens. So I think that they have the benefit to see to size things up and be patient. But let's not rule out the D's when it comes to Leafs.
Absolutely not. And with that, we have reached the stick taps portion of our show. Do you have a stick tap you'd like to hand out, CJ?
I haven't really thought about it. I forgot it was Thursday. You know what? I'll give mine to Rasmus Dahlin. Probably deserved to be here all along, but word came down today that he's going to be an NHL All-Star. His teammate Tage Thompson in Buffalo is injured, unable to be there, and so stick tack to Rasmus Dahlin for getting the All-Star nod that he probably deserved from the beginning, and also that he obviously made a last-minute decision, whatever plans he had, that wanted to come down here to South Florida and participate. So kudos to him, and great player, and I think we'll see him in a lot more All-Star games going forward.
I don't really have a great stick tap in terms of like someone cool in the NHL did something great, or someone around the sports world did something amazing. So I'm just going to give it to one of my friends, Salim Valji, who I know was very excited for about a week or so that he was going to be doing some rinkside reporting during the Connor Bedard game against the Calgary Hitmen on Wednesday. So I'm pretty sure he's pretty happy about that opportunity. I mean, you've obviously seen him on TSM before, but the idea of covering a game with the prospective number one overall pick is a big deal. Who knows where Connor Bedard will end up as a NHL superstar down the line? And you can always point to a moment like that early on in your career and say, hey, I was that guy who got to work ringside and do a pregame interview with Connor Bedard, among other things. So I will give my stick tap to my good friend Solomon. And they sold out the game.
Sold out an NHL arena for a WHL game. Like, that's this Connor Bedard thing.
Insane.
Like, it's not going anywhere. Like, seriously. And he scored again.
Nope.
Like, what's he up to? 44 goals in like 35 games. Anyway,
it's like a 34 game point streak too. Like, he's killing
30. Yeah. He got held off the board in the first game of the season. He had 10 shots in the first game, but he didn't have a point, and he's had a point in every game since, and he's had like 5 or 6 in a few games. So anyway, I'm loving the story. Like, I am all on the hype train. Like, I usually don't like to get in that. I'm usually a little gun shy, like putting too much pressure, and let's face it, it's very few players step into the league and make a real difference in year one. I have no doubt that he's going to do that. I think he's going to change a team, whichever team ends up getting him. So it's just cool to see what he's done, how he's handled it. Like, seems like a really awesome kid. I actually spoke to Frankie Corrado, my buddy who was out there doing the game in Calgary, and he had a chance to speak to Connor yesterday and was really impressed by him. So anyway, keep it going, Connor. And that was pretty cool that Calgary's selling out an NHL rink for a WHL game.
They haven't even sold out that many NHL games this year by comparison. If you want to know how crazy that is.
You're not getting the next one through your building every day, right?
Nope. 35 game point streak, and he's had 44 goals and 89 points in that span. Insanity.
Like,
is that truck noise? Is that a wagon noise?
50 and 50 is like not even a question, right? Now you're saying, like, is there a chance he gets to 50 and 39 to match Wayne Gretzky's NHL record? It's not a guarantee, but I wouldn't bet against him. Anyway, I don't want to ramp up the pressure more, but he's going to have like 50 and 40 or something like that.
Man, Connor Bedard, the phenom that he is. And that's going to bring us to the end of the CJ show for this Thursday. I'll let you get back out to the sun. If I keep you around long enough, you're going to unbutton more of those buttons on your shirt. No,
this is the limit. This is a family show.
Thank God. Please, for those watching or listening, get your questions in now for Ask CJ on Monday, whether through Twitter, whether through Discord. And don't forget to tweet at us the answer to the trivia question at what fast food restaurant CJ once worked at for your chance to win a $100 gift card to Beer Town across select locations in Ontario. Thank you, producer Drew, for tapping in for producer Nick. Mix on a water while you're out in Florida, Siege. We'll talk to you guys. We'll talk to you again.
The Chris Johnston Show.
Powered by Sports Interaction. Want to bet?
Inside the Game, twice a week. Follow Chris on Twitter at Reporter Chris. And follow Julian McKenzie at JK McKenzie.
The Chris Johnston Show.